Picture yourself gripping a frost-crusted axe on a swaying longship, the wind howling like a pack of wolves, the stench of blood and sea salt searing your nose, every heartbeat a desperate wager with death. If you were a Viking in 800 AD, in the savage heart of the Viking Age, death wasn't just a shadow-trailing ute, was often your only escape from a brutal world of ice, steel, and betrayal. Today, we romanticize Vikings' horned helmets in TV shows, rune tattoos, epic sagas of Valhalla, but if you lived then, you'd choke on frost, your name erased by the sea's endless hunger. How would you meet your end in the frozen fjords, or on blood-drenched shores? What would it feel like to live on a ship groaning under ice, facing spears, starvation, and the wrath of gods like Odin and Thor? What secrets would you carve into runestones, whisper to the wind, or sink beneath the waves? Stay with me, because this saga drags you into a relentless maelstrom of raids, disease, and lives lost to the merciless North, where survival was a daily fight, etched in blood and bone. Step into 800 AD, the dawn of the Viking Age, where you'd sail from Norway's jagged fjords, across the North Sea's churning gray waves, or down rivers to plunder the rich monasteries of England, the fertile farms of Francia, or the distant markets of Byzantium and Baghdad. You're a Norse warrior, raiding for gold crosses, silver chalices, and slaves, or trading furs, amber and walrus ivory, in bustling ports like Hedeby, Birka, or Kaupang. Your longship, a sleek drakkar, carved from oak and pine, its prow snarling with a serpent's head, riveted with iron nail slices through icy waters, carrying you to glory or doom. You'd tread wooden longhouses in fjord villages, their hearths glowing under snow-laden roofs, smoke curling from pine logs, or barter in markets thick with the smells of smoked cod, tanned hides, and sour ale, where traders hawk Slavic pottery and Arab coins. Viking life isn't the heroic tale spun by skalds or glorified in modern shows with dramatic soundtracks. You'd face storms that could splinter your ship like kindling, Saxon shield walls bristling with spears, diseases festering in your damp furs, and crewmates who'd slit your throat for a silver arm ring or a grudge born in a drunken brawl. Your longship is your home, your weapon, and often your grave, its oak planks creaking under the weight of your dreams and fears. In this video, you're stepping onto a frost-rimmed deck to live the life of a Viking, feeling the cold bite your bones, the hunger gnaw your gut, and the steel clash in your hands. Who would you be, risking everything for honor, riches, or a place in Valhalla? How would you survive in a ship reeking of tar, sweat, and rot? What scraps would keep you alive through endless winters? What wounds would tear your body apart? What sicknesses would eat you from within, silent as a draugr? How would you keep order among bloodthirsty warriors ready to betray you? And how would death finally claim you in battle, storm, or the slow rot of disease? By the end, you'll feel the sting of sleet on your face, the burn of your scars, the weight of your choices, in a world where surviving one more day was a saga of its own, a tale no modern tattoo could ever capture. Let's plunge into the life you'd lead, starting with who you'd be, under the shadow of the Raven banner, its wings flapping in the icy wind. Imagine you're Eric, a 22-year-old with skin burned raw by wind and frost, your hands scarred from hauling coarse ropes and swinging a heavy axe, your blue eyes gleaming with a fire that defies the cold, a spark of defiance against the gods themselves. You weren't born a warrior, not in the way sagas paint heroes. In a fjord village near Bergen, Norway, you were a farmer's son, tilling rocky fields under peaks cloaked in snow, your breath clouding in the chill as you dragged plows through stubborn soil. You'd race your younger sister, Astrid, across meadows where wildflowers fought the frost, her laughter echoing like a bell as you carved runestones by the shore, etching tales of Thor's hammer into gray granite. Her small hands tossed you tart bilberries picked under dawn's pale light, her grin brighter than the summer sun. At 16, you helped your father mend fishing nets by the fjord, the salt air sharp in your lungs, while Astrid sang hymns to Thor, her voice weaving through the crash of waves against jagged rocks. You'd sit by the hearth at night, your mother telling tales of Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, as sparks danced from the fire. At 18, tales of gold in English monasteries, silver in Frankish churches, and glory in the halls of Valhalla pulled you to a raiding crew led by Jarl Thorvald, a man whose face was a map of scars from a dozen battles. Off Northumbria, you stormed Lindisfarne's monastery in 793, its stone walls trembling as monks fled, their prayers drowned by war cries, your axe flashing under torchlight, silver chalices and golden crosses glinting in the chaos. You swore loyalty to Thorvald before a runestone, your hand trembling as you cut your palm, blood dripping onto the frost, your heart still tethered to the fjord, where Astrid weaves wool by a crackling hearth, her songs to Thor echoing in your dreams. You remember her tying a Thor's hammer pendant, carved from elk bone, around your neck during a winter festival, the village alive with bonfires, mead, and chants to Freya under a sky ablaze with northern lights. Most Vikings were like you, farmers, fishermen, or freed thralls, driven by poverty, ambition, or the call of the sea. You'd meet grizzled Norwegians with beards braided with bone beads, Danish exiles with eyes haunted by lost homes, Irish thralls turned warriors after escaping chains, Baltic traders bearing Slavic scars, and shield maidens like Sigrid, her axe as fierce as any man's, her laughter sharp as steel. There's Bjorn, a Danish warrior with a gravelly laugh, Kwame, a freed African thrall from a rust trade route, Leif, a young rower clutching a runestone, Hakim, a trader's son from Al-Andalus, Frida, a widowed archer, Tor, a swift scout, Ingrid, an Irish thrall with fierce eyes, Arn, a silent thrall, Gunnar, a burly rower, Einar, a skald with a poet's tongue, and Astrid's friend, Hilda, a healer who binds wounds with trembling hands. You're no hero of skald songs, just a soul chasing honor, bound by the perils of sea and steel, your heart torn between the fjord's quiet and the sea's roar. Each dawn, you'd wake with ice crusting your beard, Astrid's songs fading like mist, clutching her Thor's hammer, its bone, warm from your grip, a lifeline to home. You recall her laughter during a midsummer feast, the village dancing around a bonfire, her eyes bright as she handed you a carved rune for luck. The sea calls, but it's a wolf with jagged teeth, and the gods watch, silent. If you were out there, like Eric, would you be a mere raider, or a dreamer clinging to a spark of glory in a world that breaks men like twigs? Step into your frozen world, where the wind carries Odin's whispers, and find out. Every morning, as the sun fights through heavy clouds, you'd climb onto the sea wolf's deck. A 70-foot drakkar groaning under 30 oars, round shields lining its gunwales, and a restless crew of 30 souls, their breath clouding in the frost. The air stinks of salt, wet wool, pine tar, and the sour reek of pitch-ceiling oak planks, riveted with iron nails forged in village smithies. The ship's a maze of tattered sails patched with scraps, oars smoothed by calloused hands, and gunwales scarred by axe blows, ice, and the claws of storms that rage like Jormungandr, the world's serpent. You'd sleep under a woolen tarp on the open deck, wrapped in wolf pelts, the wind slicing like a blade through your furs, frost crusting your boots and beard, the cold so deep it aches in your bones. You share space with Bjorn, his gravelly laugh cutting through the dark, his snores battling the crash of waves against the clinker-built hull. Nights are brutal howling winds whip the tarp, timbers creak like old bones, the sea growls like a drogger, and shouts erupt over stolen pelts, a gulp of sour mead, or a miscounted share of loot. You'd lie awake, staring at stars through storm clouds, your mind drifting to the fjord where you raced Astrid across mossy slopes, her giggles blending with raven cries circling overhead, their black wings a sign of Odin's gaze. Some nights, you grip Astrid's Thor's hammer, its elk bone cold against your chest, glowing faintly in the flicker of a seal oil lamp, a tether to home, to the night she gave it to you during a blizzard, her hands warm against yours, Others hold their relics. Bjorn fingers an iron ring forged by his father, a Jutland blacksmith who died in a raid. Kwame carves wooden idols of river gods from his African homeland, his knife steady despite the cold. Sigrid clutches a Freya amulet, a gift from her sister lost in a Danish raid. Its bronze warm from her grip. Leif keeps a runestone shard etched with his mother's name, his fingers tracing its lines. Hakim holds a bronze coin from Al-Andalus, its Arabic script glinting. Frida braids a lock of her son's hair into her belt, her eyes distant. Tor carries a hawk feather, a token from his first hunt. Ingrid, the Irish thrall, hides a Celtic knot pendant. Arn grips a worn flint from his burned village. Gunnar clutches a bone die from his brother. Einar whispers verses to a raven feather. Hilda holds a sprig of dried yarrow, her healer's charm. The longship's your world, but it's a frozen cage, rocking on a sea that could turn killer in a heartbeat, its waves whispering of Niflheim's chill. In ports like Hedeby, Ribe, or Kaupang, you'd weave through smoky markets, the air thick with dried cod, tanned hides, and spilled ale, where traders hawk Slavic pottery, Frankish swords, and Arab dirhams. You once saw Sven, a wiry lad, collapse in a Hedeby alley, stabbed by a trader over a silver coin, his dagger useless in the mud, his blood freezing in the snow. Another night, Frida sang a saga of Odin's ravens in a ribe hall, her voice cracking as the crew roared, their drunken shouts a fleeting bond under a smoky roof, the firelight dancing on their scars. In Berka, you dodged a brawl where Olaf lost a finger to a knife, his curses ringing through the frost as blood dripped onto snow, the crowd cheering like wolves. You'd hear whispers of mutinies, deals with Frankish or Slavic merchants, and tales of gold hoards buried in misty isles or sunken drakers off Orkney, each story dragging you deeper into this wild life, a saga no modern film could capture. One dusk, you sit with Kwame by a Kaupang fire, his tales of African rivers warming the night, his idols glowing in the flames. In Ribe, you share mead with Sigrid, her stories of her sister's shield wall stand sparking the air like flint. Leif speaks of his mother's farm under the aurora, his runestone clutched tight. Hakim tells of desert markets, his coin glinting as he dreams of home. Frida recounts her son's first hunt, her voice heavy as she sharpens her bow. Tor shares a tale of tracking deer, his feather tucked into his belt. Ingrid sings of Irish hills, her Celtic knot hidden under her cloak. Arn hums a tune from his lost village, his flint a silent weight. Gunnar rolls his die, laughing about his brother's bets. Einar recites a verse of Yggdrasil, his raven feather trembling. Hilda offers you yarrow tea, her healer's hand steady despite her fear. These moments, rare as a calm sea, keep a spark of hope alive, like embers in a winter hearth. You trade a stolen brooch for a skald's tale of Valhalla, his words painting halls of endless feasts, or share a laugh with Tor over a burned fish, his grin boyish despite his scars. In a quiet fjord, you carve a rune for Astrid on a driftwood plank, its lines sharp under your knife. If you were here, like Eric, you'd feel the icy weight of this stinking ship crushing your spirit, the cold seeping into your soul like a curse. But what would keep you fighting through the frost when every day tests your will to live? It's not just plunder, and we'll uncover that fire soon as the sea's hunger grows. Food is a scarce treasure, barely enough to keep you standing, let alone strong for battle. You'd gnaw on moldy flatbread, spitting out bitter clumps that taste of damp earth, or chew dried cod so salty it burns your tongue, the fishy reek clinging to your fingers like a ghost. On rare days, you'd savor bilberries, lingonberries, or venison stolen from Saxon villages, their fleeting sweetness a pulse of life in your mouth. Water, stored in oak barrels, turns slimy, reeking of rot like a stagnant bog, while mead sours after weeks at sea, stinging your throat like bile. You'd chew bread till your jaw screams, hunger a wolf tearing at your gut, its claws sharper than any axe. Chronicles, like Alcuin's letters on the 793 Lindisfarne raid, show Vikings starved on long voyages when raids failed, their bodies wasting under furs. After sacking a Frankish village near Rouen, you'd find an apple, its tart juice flooding your mouth, pulling you back to the fjord where Astrid tossed you bilberries, her grin brighter than the midnight sun, her laughter ringing as you shared a handful by the shore. You share the apple with Sven, a scrawny kid who reminds you of your cousin, his eyes glowing as juice drips down his chin, his laugh echoing yours from childhood summers. But hunger bites back, its teeth crueler than steel. On the Sea Wolf, you'd see men brawl over scraps, knives flashing for a strip of rancid bacon or a spoiled turnip, their eyes wild like cornered beasts. One night, Olaf stabbed Lars over a gulp of mead, blood pooling on the frost-slick deck as you watched, heart pounding like a war drum, the crew's shouts drowning out his groans. You'd learn to eat fast, hiding crumbs under your cloak, hands trembling with desperate need. In Hedeby, you traded a stolen silver brooch for roasted venison, its smoky flavor a rare joy you shared with Kwame, who spoke of millet stews cooked over open fires in his distant village, his voice soft with memory. On a brutal voyage across the North Sea, you'd choke down fish head stew, its stench curling your stomach like a fist, but you'd force it down, knowing starvation stalks like a draugr, its shadow long. Frida bartered a handful of dried lingonberries for thread to mend her shield, her eyes fierce as she haggled with a one-eyed trader in Ribe, her hands steady despite her hunger. In Birka, you tasted stolen honey, its sticky sweetness shared with Sigrid, who whispered of her sister's love for mead before a raid tore her away, her Freya amulet glinting in the firelight. You'd dream of your mother's lamb stew, its aroma of thyme and mutton filling your longhouse, your family laughing under an oil lamp's glow, Astrid sneaking you bread crusts sticky with honey, her fingers stained with berry juice. Some days you'd chew memories of her passing you roasted hazelnuts by the fjord, her laughter warming the cold air. In a lean winter, you saw Leif hoard a fishbone, his eyes darting like a cornered wolf, ready to kill for it. In a cowpang hall, you shared a rare pig's leg with Bjorn, his laughter booming as he told of his father's feasts, the hearth's warmth a distant dream under the stars. In Ribe, Hakim offered you a dried date from a trade caravan, its strange sweetness a taste of his Andalusian homeland, his eyes far away as he spoke of desert fruits. Tor split a charred gull's egg with you, his grin boyish despite the scar across his cheek. Ingrid slipped you a barley cake, her hands trembling from hunger, her Celtic knot hidden under her cloak. Arn shared a moldy crust, his flint a silent weight in his pocket. Gunnar tossed you a dried herring, his dye rolling as he laughed. Einar offered a sip of watered mead, his raven feather tucked into his belt. Hilda gave you a bitter root, claiming it fought hunger, her yarrow sprig clutched tight. Food is survival, but it's never enough, and it's not your deadliest enemy. If you were here, like Eric, hunger would tear your soul apart, but something far darker waits beyond the horizon, its claws sharper than any storm. Your work as a Viking is a relentless storm of sweat, blood, and bone, each task a test of endurance, each raid a dance with death. You'd row until your arms burn, oars heavy against icy waves, their rhythm pounding like a war drum in your chest, the cold numbing your fingers to the bone. You'd hoist sails in winds that cut like knives, the coarse canvas tearing at your frostbitten palms, sleet stinging your face like needles. You'd sharpen axes, their edges gleaming under a pale sun, or haul round shields onto the longship, their iron bosses bruising your shoulders, their weight a constant ache. The Sea Wolf hunts Welsh English monasteries, stuffed with silver crosses and golden relics, Frankish farms heavy with grain and cattle, Irish markets rich with wool and slaves, or Baltic routes laden with amber, furs, and walrus ivory. When you spot a target, the deck erupts like a thunderclap. You'd charge with axe and shield, war horns blaring, the air thick with screams, smoke, and the clash of steel on wood. You swing your axe, heart hammering like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, fear bitter in your throat as you leap onto a muddy shore, storm a palisade, or board a merchant ship. In the 793 raid on Lindisfarne, you'd see Lars fall, his chest pierced by a Saxon spear, his cry drowned by the crack of burning thatch, and the wail of monks fleeing with their relics. Jarl Thorvald, his face a map of scars from 10 battles, roars orders from the prow, his sword flashing like lightning, his voice slicing through chaos like an axe through bone. But battles aren't your only threat. Storms can shatter a longship, waves crashing like Thor's wrath, sweeping men into the deep where Ran, the sea goddess, waits with her net. One night, a tempest slams the sea wolf off Orkney, oars snapping like twigs, the mast groaning like a dying beast, its serpent head swaying. You'd cling to a rope, hands bleeding through cracked skin, as Olaf is dragged into the sea, his scream swallowed by the wind's howl, his face lost in the spray. Icebergs lurk like silent assassins, their jagged edges ripping hulls like parchment. The sea wolf grazed one in the North Sea, ice grinding against oak as you patched leaks, fingers numb in freezing water, your breath clouding like a ghost, the cold seeping into your marrow. You'd mend torn sails under sleet, stitching with frozen hands until your fingers bleed, or haul loot sacks of grain, silver hoards, or screaming captives until your back screams in protest. Your muscles burning. In a Frankish raid near Rouen, an arrow grazes your arm, the burn lingering for days, a whisper of death's nearness that chills your blood. Sven falls from the rigging in a gale, his body smashing the deck, blood mixing with seawater as you turn away, stomach churning, his cry echoing in your ears. You'd forge iron nails for the hull, hammering under Thorvald's piercing glare, the sparks flying like stars. You'd carry barrels of pitch, their weight crushing your chest, or drag logs to repair the keel, splinters digging into your palms. In an Irish skirmish, you dodge a sword, its blade nicking your ribs, the pain sharp but fleeting, a reminder to stay sharp. During a winter raid on a Danish village, you'd wade through snow to burn a palisade, your boots soaked, lungs burning from smoke and cold, the flames roaring like a dragon. One dawn, you help carve a serpent's head for the prow, its snarling eyes fierce under your knife, as Leif whispers of his mother's tales of Nidhogg, the serpent gnawing Yggdrasil's roots. In a Baltic raid, you haul a merchant's amber, its warm glow heavy in your hands, while Hakim speaks of desert caravans, his coin glinting. Frida teaches you to string a bow, her fingers steady despite her grief, her son's braid swaying. Tor scouts a riverbank, his hawk feather tucked into his belt, his eyes sharp as he signals. Ingrid rows beside you, her strength defying her thrall past, her Celtic knot hidden. Arn hefts barrels, his flint a silent weight. Gunnar carves a shield's edge, his die rolling in his palm. Einar recites a verse of Ragnarok, his raven feather trembling. Hilda binds a cracked oar, her yarrow sprig tucked into her sleeve. Every task tests your endurance. Every raid tempts fate, the gods watching from above. If you were here, like Eric, every swing of your axe would dance with death, every heave of your oar a defiance of the sea's hunger. But what would you face when the fight ends, when the real agony begins, and the cold seeps deeper than any blade? Injuries are as common as the waves hammering your ship, each one a mark of survival, but also a step closer to death. You'd bear scars from ropes snapping like whips, their coarse fibers slicing your palms, burns from torches searing your hands, leaving red welts that throb for days, and a deep gash in your thigh from a Frankish lance in a botched raid near Rouen, the wound pulsing with every step. Vikings have no healers in the modern sense, only Bjorn, the carpenter with a limp, or Gunnar, the one-legged cook, hacking limbs with dull knives, their edges rusted. A swig of sour mead, your only relief against the pain. Bones from Oseberg and Gokstad burials, unearthed in Norway, show sword cuts, shattered skulls, broken ribs, and joints worn raw from years of rowing and fighting. You'd watch Olaf lose an arm to a Saxon axe in a Northumbrian raid, his screams piercing the air as Bjorn saws through bone, mead spilling like tears down his braided beard, his eyes wild with pain. Olaf fights on, his stump bound in bloodied leather, because stopping is death, his strength the defiance of fate. Sigrid takes an arrow to the shoulder, storming a Frankish church, blood soaking her woolen tunic as you bind her wound, hands trembling with cold and fear. But infection creeps in, claiming her in days, her Freya amulet slipping from her fingers as she gasps her last breath. You'd nearly lose a finger to a snapped oar, the wood splintering, the pain throbbing like fire as you wrap it in a rag torn from your cloak, knowing a bad wound could finish you in this world without mercy. In Hedeby's crowded market, you'd see Lars limp through the mud, his foot black with gangrene after stepping on a rusted nail, his face gray with pain, his steps faltering as traders shove past. Frida gashes her hand on a splintered oar, blood dripping onto the deck as she rows, her jaw clenched against the agony, her son's braid swaying with each stroke. In a Danish raid, Sven takes a sword to the chest, the blade biting deep. You hold him as he bleeds out, his eyes locked on the clouds, whispering of his mother's fjord under northern lights, his breath fading like a tide. Kwame burns his arm with hot pitch, sealing the hull, the skin blistering as he curses in his native tongue, his idols clutched tight. A young lad, Tor, takes a spear to the gut in an Irish raid, his blood pooling in the mud as you drag him behind a shield, his breath stopping as you whisper a prayer to Odin, your voice breaking. Leif's leg is crushed by a falling beam in a village assault, his screams haunting as you tie a rag around the shattered bone, his runestone slipping from his hand. Hakim slices his hand on a broken shield, the cut festering as he prays to his sun god, his bronze coin glinting in the firelight. Ingrid's arm is slashed in a skirmish, her blood staining the snow as she binds it herself, her eyes fierce despite the pain. Arn takes a rock to the knee in a scuffle, his limp worsening as he hefts barrels. Gunnar's hand is crushed by a falling spar, his dye rolling away as he groans. Einar's shoulder is gashed by a glancing axe, his raven feather stained red. Hilda burns her fingers on a hot pot, her yarrow sprig no help against the pain. You'd stitch your own cuts with stolen thread, each scar a badge of survival, but also a warning of death's nearness, a reminder that no tattoo today could capture this raw suffering. In a quiet moment, you help Tor bandage a burn, his gratitude a rare warmth in the cold. Another night, you bind Ingrid's wound, her Celtic knot glinting as she thanks you. If you were here, like Eric, every wound would scream that death is close, its breath cold on your neck, but a worse foe sails with you, silent and relentless, creeping through your bones. Disease is a thief that kills more Vikings than blades or storms, a silent killer no skald song could outrun. Your longship is a festering pit, murky water in barrels, its surface slick with green scum, moldy bread crawling with worms, their white bodies writhing. Damp furs breeding green rot that clings to the planks like a curse from Niflheim. Scurvy ravages your gums, teeth falling like pebbles, leaving bloody holes, your skin splitting like dry bark under the cold. You'd see Lars lose his teeth, his mouth bleeding as he begs for berries that never come, his breath reeking of decay, his hands clawing at his swollen face. Swamp fever, pestilence, and lung rot burn through crews like wildfire across a dry heath. Sven shivers under pelts, his skin yellow as wax, eyes sunken like dark caves in a cliff. You give him water, seeing your cousin's face in his, but he's gone by dawn, his body wrapped in a torn sail and tossed to the sea with a muttered prayer to Odin, the waves swallowing him whole. Alcuin's letters and runestone inscriptions from Norway note diseases wiping out crews in weeks without fresh food, their bodies piling up faster than swords could kill. Kwame falls to fever after drinking stagnant water, his wooden idols scattered on the deck as he whispers to river gods from his African homeland, his voice fading like a receding tide. Frida's cough rips through her lungs, her body so light you barely feel it as you lower it to the waves, her son's braided lock floating free, a final offering to Ran. Olaf's wound festers after a nail puncture, his legs swelling until he can't stand. They leave him on a barren isle, his cries fading as the sea wolf sails away, the horizon swallowing his pleas. You'd feel your own gums bleed, your joints weaken, a cold dread settling in your chest as disease stalks you like a wolf in the dark. Vikings pray to Thor, Freya, or ancient spirits of the land, but answers are rare, the gods as cold as the sea. You'd whisper to Odin, picturing Astrid praying by the fjord, her Thor's hammer gleaming in her hands as she kneels by the hearth. Bjorn's Norse chants tremble in the night, his voice breaking as he speaks of his mother's hearth in Jutland, the firelight a distant memory. Sigrid murmurs to her sister's spirit, clutching her Freya amulet, her eyes wet with unshed tears. In Hedeby, Hakim prays to his sun god, his words slurred with fever, his bronze coin slipping from his fingers. Leif clutches his runestone, begging his mother's blessing as pestilence creeps through his bones, his breath shallow. Ingrid coughs blood, her Irish songs fading as she weakens, her Celtic knot hidden under her cloak. Tor's fever burns after a Baltic raid, his scout's eyes dulling as he grips his hawk feather. Arn collapses from lung rot, his body tossed overboard with no words, his flint sinking to the deep. Gunnar's fever takes him after a wound festers, his dye left behind. Einar's lungs fail, his raven feather falling as he gasps verses of Ragnarok. Hilda succumbs to pestilence, her yarrow sprig useless, her hands still. You'd see a thrall, Rolf, waste away from scurvy, his teeth gone, his prayers to Freyr unanswered. Another, Bjarni, chokes on blood, his body slid into the sea. Disease is a shadow you can't outrun, a killer striking without mercy, no matter how many runes you carve. If you were here, like Eric, you'd feel sickness claw at your life, its grip tighter than any storm, but the crew's brutal code drives you forward. Your will tested, as the gods watch in silence. Control on your ship is a fragile rope, held by fear, honor, and a warrior's code etched in blood and stone. Jarl Thorvald rules with an iron grip, his sword, notched from countless fights, always ready to punish traitors or slackers, its blade glinting like ice in the sun. His face, scarred by frost and battle, is like granite carved by a storm, his eyes cutting like daggers through your soul, seeing every doubt. The Viking code, rooted in laws like the Gulating, demands equal shares of loot, loyalty to the Jarl, and death for betrayal, binding you to the crew like chains. You'd swear it in blood before a runestone, cutting your palm, the pain sharp as your blood drips onto frost, sealing your fate under Odin's gaze. But tensions flare like sparks on dry tinder, ready to ignite. Fights over mead, silver, or old grudges erupt under the stars, axes glinting in moonlight, the decks slick with spilled blood or ale. You'd watch Olaf whipped for stealing a silver arm ring, his back bleeding as Thorvald counts 20 lashes, his voice cold as a glacier, the crew silent as the leather cracks. Vikings vote for their jarl, raid targets, or new rules. Unlike the rigid armies of Frankish kings, a fragile democracy born of necessity, but disloyalty means a swift and brutal end. Sven plots mutiny after a failed raid near Paris, whispering in the dark about seizing the ship, his eyes wild with greed. Caught, he's marooned on a rocky outcrop with a single knife, his silhouette fading in fog as you row away, your stomach twisting, his curses swallowed by the wind. You'd resist quietly. Kwame speaks of fleeing to Iceland's free shores, his eyes alight with dreams of a new life beyond Thorvald's reach. Sigrid hides coins in her boots, hoping to honor her sister's memory with a cairn. You carve a rune for Astrid on a shield, its lines a small defiance against your trapped fate, a whisper of home. One night, you share tales of fjord winters with Sven, your whispers low under the aurora's eerie glow, stories of fishing with Astrid, by the icy shore keeping you human. Bjorn teaches you a war chant to summon Thor's strength, his rough hands steady despite the cold, his ring glinting as he sings. Sigrid speaks of her sister's last stand against Danes, her voice cracking as she polishes her Freya amulet, its bronze warm. Frida sings of her father, lost in a raid, her words heavy as she sharpens her bow, her son's braid swaying. In Ribe, you'd see Lars give bread to a starving child, his grim face softening for a moment, a rare spark of kindness in a world of steel. Hakim carves a sun symbol on a plank, a nod to his Andalusian roots, his eyes distant as he dreams of desert warmth. Leif shares a tale of his mother's farm, clutching his runestone under a starry sky, his voice soft. Ingrid tells of Irish hills, her Celtic not hidden, her songs defiant. Tor whispers of his first hunt, his hawk feather tucked into his belt. Arn hums a tune from his burned village, his flint a silent weight. Gunnar rolls his bone die, laughing about his brother's bets. Einar recites a verse of Yggdrasil, his raven feather trembling in the wind. Hilda offers a prayer to Freyr, her yarrow sprig clutched tight. Rolf speaks of his lost brothers, his voice breaking. Bjarni carves a wolf on a barrel, his hands shaking. These acts, fleeting as a summer dawn, are lifelines in the chaos, threads of hope you'd cling to, like a drowning man. But rebellion has a price, and the sea collects it swiftly, its waves unforgiving. If you were here, like Eric, you'd hold these moments tight, their warmth a shield against the cold, but death waits to claim its due, its shadow long and inevitable. Death is your constant shadow, lurking in every wave, every blade, every cough. Battles shred ships and men, arrows and spears piercing flesh like paper, the sea swallowing the fallen like a hungry god, Ran's net pulling them to her watery halls. Storms sink longships, their oak hulls splintering, screams lost in the wind's roar as waves crash like Thor's hammer. Diseases claim crews, bodies tossed to the waves with a grunt, their names forgotten. You'd see Lars fall in a Northumbrian raid, his chest split by a Saxon spear, blood staining the sand red as he sinks to his knees, his axe falling. Olaf dies of fever, his body slid into the sea, wrapped in a torn sail, his last words a plea for his mother in Jutland. Sven leaps into a storm off Shetland, weary of raids, his form vanishing in the froth, choosing the deep over endless suffering. Sigrid falls, swinging her axe, a Saxon lance piercing her heart as she guards the prow, her Freya amulet glinting as she collapses. Bjorn is hanged for treason, his body swaying from the mast, the crew silent as his boots dangle, his ring rolling across the deck. Frida's cough claims her, her lungs giving out in the damp hold, her body light as you lower it to the waves, her son's braid floating free like a lost dream. In Hedeby, Lars is knifed in a tavern brawl, bleeding out in muddy snow, his silver stolen by a shadowed figure. Kwame drowns when a wave sweeps him off the deck, his cry cut short by the sea's cold grip, his idols sinking. Tor dies from a spear in an Irish raid, his blood pooling as you try to save him, his hawk feather falling, his eyes fading. Hakim chokes on his own blood, fever burning him out after weeks without fruit, his coin left behind. Leif succumbs to pestilence, his runestone falling to the deck as his breath stops, his mother's name unspoken. Ingrid's lung rot takes her, her Irish song silenced as you wrap her body, her Celtic knot glinting faintly. Arn collapses from fever, his body tossed overboard with no words, his flint lost to the deep. Gunnar's fever takes him after a wound festers, his die left rolling. Einar's lungs fail, his raven feather falling as he gasps verses of Ragnarok. Hilda succumbs to pestilence, her yarrow sprig useless, her hands still as you lower her to the sea. Rolf wastes away from scurvy, his teeth gone, his prayers to Freyr unanswered. Bjarni chokes on blood, his body slid into the waves, his wolf carving unfinished. A rower, Magnus, is crushed by a falling spar, his scream brief as the wood splinters. Another thrall, Thora, takes an arrow to the throat, her blood spraying as you drag her to cover, her eyes wide with fear. For many, death is mercy, a release from hunger, pain, and the endless fear of betrayal or defeat, a chance to dine in Valhalla or rest in Ran's halls. You'd hear Vikings speak of Valhalla in hushed tones, their eyes on the horizon, as if glory waits in the waves' cold embrace, their voices trembling with hope and dread. If you were here, like Eric, this brutal world could have been your doom. Todays so cruel they'd shatter your spirit, nights so dark they'd steal your hope. A reality no modern epic could capture. It's a frozen dawn, and you're on the Sea Wolf, raiding a Saxon monastery near York, its stone walls looming through the fog. The air cracks with war cries, arrows hissing like serpents, the stench of blood and burning thatch choking your lungs like a curse. The raid unfolds in brutal phases. First, scouting. Tor creeps through the fog, his hawk feather tucked into his belt, signaling the monastery's weak wooden gates, his breath clouding. You row silently up the river, the chill seeping into your bones, your hands numb on the oar. Then the ambush. You charge with the crew, shields locked in a wall, axes flashing as monks flee, their prayers drowned by horn blasts and the crackle of flames. You swing your axe, hands trembling, frost biting your skin like needles, heart pounding as you smash through a door, silver relics glinting inside. But the Saxons rally a militia with spears and bows, forms a shield wall, their eyes hard. An arrow grazes your arm, the sting sharp, but you press on, hacking at a Saxon shield, splinters flying. Lars falls, a spear through his chest, his blood soaking the earth, his axe clattering. The Saxons push back, forcing a retreat to the Sea-Wolf. You stumble aboard, boots slipping on frost, but a second wave hits an archer's volley snaps the mast, oars cracking like bones, the serpent prow swaying. Thorvald roars, "Hold the line!" His sword a blur, but a lance tears through your thigh, pain exploding like molten iron, a fire that blinds you. You collapse, blood pooling on the deck, screams fading in the clash of steel and fire. Bjorn is hacked down by a Saxon blade, his ring rolling free across the planks. Kwame is crushed by a falling shield, his idols splintered into the sea. A counterattack drives the Saxons back, you swinging weakly, but another volley hits the Sea-Wolf tilts, icy water flooding through gashes, groaning like a dying god, its hull splintering. You clutch Astrid's Thor's hammer, its bone cutting your palm, her laughter ringing in your mind, the fjord's snowy peaks vivid in your eyes. Thorvald fights on, but the ship can't hold. A final retreat fails as flames catch the sails, the crew scattering. Wounded Vikings are abandoned, tossed to the sea, or left on shores to die alone, their cries lost. As the Sea-Wolf sinks, pain searing your flesh, you wonder if death will come and if it's kinder than this life you chose, a life no Viking tattoo could ever glorify. You survive, but at a terrible cost that no saga could soften. Your leg never heals, the lance wound festering, leaving you lame, useless, for Thorvald's swift raids, a burden to the crew. He maroons you on a frozen isle, a knife and a flask of water, your only companions under a sky heavy with snow, the wind howling like Fenrir unbound. You grip Astrid's Thor's hammer, its bone cutting your palm, as the Sea-Wolf vanishes into the mist, its serpent prow a fading shadow. You leave behind Lars, Olaf, Sigrid, Kwame, Frida, Tor, Hakim, Leif, Ingrid, Arn, Gunnar, Einar, Hilda, Rolf, Bjarni, Magnus, and Thorath, names erased by the waves, their sagas swallowed by the wind, their relics lost to the deep. Vikings like you carved legends of valor, their raids shaking the thrones of Europe, their drakars slicing through history, but they paid with blood, sweat, and broken bones, their lives a currency for glory. You dreamed of Valhalla, escaping the fjord's hardships, the plow's grind, but found chains in the sea's endless hunger, its waves a prison no modern epic could capture. Your longship was a symbol of defiance, its serpent prow a challenge to kings, but it was also a frozen cage where every day was a fight to breathe, to hold on to hope. We carve Viking runes on our skin, binge their sagas on glowing screens, dreaming of epic battles and horned helmets. But if you were there, you'd die with ice in your lungs, your story lost to the waves. A truth far crueler than our modern myths. The fjords and seas hold their secret sunken drakars like those found at Oseberg, buried hoards of silver, rune stones worn by time, their inscriptions fading, but their whispers carry the weight of courage, sacrifice, and loss that no tattoo or TV show could ever fully grasp, a reality that cuts deeper than any blade. If this saga seized your heart, you can't miss our other video. If you were a pirate in 1700, this is how you'd die. It plunges into the lives of pirates battling on warm seas, their pain as raw as yours on the Sea-Wolf. their sacrifices just as heavy, their dreams just as fleeting. Click now, the brutal truths of the past await to pull you into their grip. The fjords hide sunken ships, forgotten gold, and sagas of warriors who defied fate to their last breath, their stories etched in blood and ice. What else lies in the North's frozen grip, waiting to be uncovered? That's a tale for another video, a saga yet to be sung. Stay with me, because what's coming next will leave you breathless, your heart racing like a Viking facing the storm.